Saatchi Saatchi. I actually come from a very small search specialist agency that was acquired in 2012, so unlike you guys, probably, most of you. And I've been exposed to big brands at Saatchi now for 5 years. I've been working with them, trying to evangelize search and trying to get the organization to take it more seriously, and trying to get brands to take it more seriously. At Saatchi, we believe that nothing is impossible. That's our mantra, our credo. It resonates to everything we do, and that's not the breaking the laws of physics kind of impossible. It's the possible. We're a marketing challenge. So something that they said we couldn't do, we have to go and do that. So that's what we strive to do. When I first joined the agency, I started talking to brands about search all over the world, and this is one of the actual quotes I got from one of my clients, big client, is a global brand, I'm not going to say it. We did search in 2007, it was rubbish. And unfortunately, I get a lot of that commentary, like search was something cool in 2001 apparently, or 2003, doesn't work anymore, didn't work for us. And I think that attitude is why sometimes search is seen as this unsexy cousin of the rest of marketing, like a little stepsister. So I put together I always have to remind them that search is actually the biggest channel. It's way bigger than TV. I think 60% of all transactions, I might be making this stats up, but 60% of all transactions, online and offline, include a search somewhere along that journey. You know it as much as I know. So at Saatchi, we've got this matrix. It's a way to visualize everything we do. And it's especially relevant for content. So at the top we've got stuff that's impossible, so those really difficult challenges, the stuff that we like to work on, the exciting things. And at the bottom we've got the possible, that's ordinary, everyday. And then relevancy along the left to right axis. And if we think about where content fits, so obviously we all want to be relevant and impossible, this great content, that's awesome. Quite often you get the irrelevant, impossible stuff, which is madness. And then fodder, and then general good content. So if we look at search content and try and fit it on this matrix, or actually that's my next phase. This is what I think about my content every time I'm trying to get something to the client. This is amazing, this is the next thing, this is the future. Media agencies who end up actually paying to get people to that content, they don't like it. This is ordinary, it's okay. Ad agencies hate it because they think it's the most disgusting thing they've ever seen, it's boring, it's full of keywords. God, why do you need a keyword in there? This is content, this is copywriting. TV copywriters don't know about keywords. And then you've got the clients, of course, the most important thing. And the client actually has no attitude towards content normally. They want cool advertising, but when it comes to search, content is just a thing that they have in a to-do list. It's a tick box that they've got to tick off. I might be generalizing, sorry, some of your clients. Actually, in terms of search, it's a lot more complex than this. So we've got spam, which takes up most of that madness quadrant. And actually some of that spam is really, really good. I've seen some crazy structures built by technical spammers that get thousands and thousands of hits. It works, but it's still madness and it's still spam. Mostly irrelevant. Sometimes you get lucky, you get some relevant stuff. And then you get a content mill. That's a third world sweatshop where you send money and you get content back. And then you put it on a website and hope that it works and gets you something. And then the stuff we do every day, or we should be doing every day, some of us don't, take shortcuts. This is like actually good, but where we should be aiming for is that stuff. So the search content we're creating should be great advertising, it should be good content, it should be amazing. So I've got a few tips on how we can try and make that content amazing. So most brands don't actually understand what their content is. I don't really, most people don't. If you try and define it, it's very difficult. So it's any piece of communication that is purposefully communicated. So it could be a tweet, it could be a classified ad, it could be a big budget Christmas ad, whatever. These are all forms of content. And we've got to make our search content as relevant and as good as the rest of those. Oops. Next. So I've just shared a few tips of how to make search content great content. So MAGA, make content great again, something like that. The first step is to align. So I've got a humorous diagram here to share. And it just, it's actually quite serious. So this is a bit of a comic that takes the piss out of a few organizations and their hierarchies. But it shows us that the hierarchy is actually part of the built-in the infrastructure of the company. The spirit is built into the company by its hierarchy. So Amazon is a robot. Facebook is trying to be everything to everyone. Google is a mess. They've got 5,000 different brands, and no one really knows what's going on. Apple is a monolithic mega brand. Everything is the same, and their marketing is exactly the same. Their content is the same. It actually works really well. And then you've got Oracle. They're just lawyers. They like to sue people. Sorry. But in terms of what we're talking about here, buttons. So this is an example of a brand that I've worked on. It's a shampoo. You might be able to figure out which one it is. And what we did with them was we took the core essence of the brand, like what the brand think that they do, so the benefits of their brand, and we actually created a content hierarchy based off of that. So it does 4 things. I can't read that, but it's essentially it removes dandruff, it sorts out scalp conditions, both severe and then your common scalp conditions, and then it's also beauty. It's a beauty product, so it's good for hair care. And then we subdivided it and then subdivided it again. And if you look at these hierarchies are actually the same things that research and development will use to go and check. Does our shampoo do this? All these tick boxes. So we align those perfectly. So when people are searching, they'll come in on exactly what they're looking for. I've got to hurry up through this. So the first step that you need to do is to align as closely as possible your content strategy with the internal hierarchy of the organization. So the closer you can get that, and the easier you get that right, the better your content is, because people will be coming in the funnel exactly what they're looking for. I'm not talking about using terminology, I'm talking about actual departments and sizes, and the way you put stuff together. So the second one is to clearly define the role of the content, and this one, it aligns quite closely with the fact that people don't actually know what the content is for. They don't know what the content is, they don't know what it's for, and that's our job. So we have to help our clients understand what their content is for. And I'll put together a few useful tips. You can take a picture if you want. No one has. So the content must be purposeful. So it has to be relevant and multifunctional. So obviously everything has to be relevant, but the relevancy, the more relevant you can make it, the better. So if you get 2 purposes, so 2 things that the content can do for you, it's better. So every new function you get makes your content that much better. Talking about spam here, so content must be unambiguous, ethical, and not come from a sweatshop. It needs to be written by someone who knows what they're talking about, an expert, not someone who you've paid just to get a piece of content to fill a space, to get a link, whatever it is. And then obviously it must be future-proof. So this is both technical and contextual. So is what you're writing going to be relevant to people in 10 years' time? If it's not, maybe you should rethink what you're writing about. So I'll just put together an example of dual content or multi-purpose content. So on food brands, for example, you have to include a nutritional chart. Those are pretty dry and boring. So an easy way to make that better is because you've got phosphorus in it. You can actually then create a piece of content that takes that boring chart and makes it a little bit more. So you can stick in a keyword. So what is phosphorus good for children? And you can create content about the fact that foods that are high in phosphorus are good for bone density, whatever. So you're getting multiple keywords in a piece of content that ordinarily would have just been there as a filler. So the more good points you can get to a page like that, the better, obviously. So just a reminder, we're talking about purpose. So this might just help illustrate purpose a little bit more. So how do we, I think I'm running out of time, but I'm nervous, sorry. Cool. So thinking about how Google's going to look at your content in the future pushes me to the third point that I'm going to go through here, and that's thinking about the greater good. So if we can imagine a world where all pages are the same, so all sites are perfectly optimized, it's never going to happen. We know that only 80%, you only always ever 80% optimized. But if we think about a world where everyone's the same, everyone's got the same number of backlinks, how do you then rank? So if all the signals are equal, what are the things that Google will do then to find out who ranks better? And that leads me to think about the content and the role of your content to humanity as a whole. So if you're creating content that's just a filler, it's a waste of time, it's not going to do anything meaningful, Google might not actually choose to rank that. Whereas if you're doing something that actually has a benefit to people, not just, oh, here's a piece of knowledge for me, but benefit to mankind. So if we take ethical things, if everyone was to understand this content, would it help the world? Would it make the world a better place? So could Google, with all of its machine learning ability now, DeepMind, whatever they call themselves, would it be able to actually assess the goodness of content, not the quality of it or how well it's written, but the actual goodness? I know that opens up a huge debate about values and what's good to you might not be good to someone else. But I think machine learning will very quickly be able to determine the good from the bad and your intentions. So, thinking about content from this perspective, will algorithms ever use these alternative things like ethics and other ways to measure the quality of content? And I think we should be thinking about that now already. Even though the technology doesn't exist, if we start creating content with that in mind, we'll be ready when it does happen. And I don't know if you've been to university, you generally have to study ethics at some point. Canteen has a thing called universality, and that is particularly relevant because it's something when, if you think about anything, any single thing, like if I steal that slice of bread, if everyone was stealing slices of bread, the economy would collapse. It's the same with content. So if you go to that next level and apply it to everything, all pieces of content, so you use PageRank algorithm using ethics as a ranking signal, what ends up? So who will start ranking? And I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'm pretty sure it'll be quite powerful. I actually think I've gone quite quickly through this. Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of you looking at me. Sure. So I'm going to just carry on talking. 5 minutes. Wow. It's up to me. I'm just going to try and think of some examples where the content hasn't been taken seriously and how we can start getting clients to take content seriously. In that insurance, for example, it's a very, very competitive. If we can find that dual purpose for an insurance client, quite often insurance companies tend to compete and try and have the best possible things. But if you actually think about the benefit of the client, make it human. Like Direct Line, for example, we extracted ourselves from content aggregators and we took the actual product and the product benefits and we made that the content. So what does it do that no one else does? And we make that the hero and make that the focus. So I'm just trying to think of an exact example. So we made our hero Winston Wolfe, Harvey Keitel, you must have seen the ads. Oh, they're returning, lots of it. So each thing that he focuses on, each one of those ads, is actually a piece of content that exists somewhere in the wild that no one else does. It's quite hard to have that in the insurance world when it's so competitive and everyone else does everything. It's very difficult to do that. And the one way we did that was to just pull out of aggregators so that our content is unique and sits only on the Direct Line website, just to make it that much more special. And focusing on those hero pieces, so a product or a benefit that no one else does, really helped us. And it just makes you stand out from the rest of the insurance providers. I think we've got another insurance provider coming later, so I don't take too much glory. But I think that's me. Nothing is impossible. Thank you.